I got to start with Nick Bosa because I called him out last week, Baldy. There was a lot of finger pointing after they lost to Arizona, and I just said, you know what? When you're the highest paid defensive player in football, you got to step up, you got to dominate, you got to be that factor every single play. And you know what? On Thursday Night Football, Baldy, I thought it was one of Bosa's best games of his career. Definitely one of his best games since last season. I thought for the first 3 snaps, Bosa was dominant against the run, against the pass, and it doesn't show up in his stat sheet, but that was an all-time Nick Bosa game on Thursday Night Football against Seattle, and boy, did the Niners need it on that defensive side of the football.
Yeah, they did. They really they stepped it up. And, look, Nick had he had a pigeon in front of him. That's their third, right tackle. I mean, he should abuse him. But, but beyond just beating his man, I thought he impacted the game. And he played a lot of snaps. He's been playing a lot of snaps, probably more than he's used to because they just don't have the depth that they once had. And so, like, he's putting it on himself. That was, you're right, Arizona, like, they took it to him in the second half of that game, and they didn't make anything happen. And last week they made a lot of things happen, including the rookies who both stepped up.
It's interesting, like the game plan feels like it's been out regarding like Spags ran sticky man coverage and it felt like a lot of teams were trying to replicate that against Brock Purdy the last couple of weeks or whatever. And I've seen him now adjust and he's willing to run with his legs and make plays. And he's done it week after week after week. I thought as good as his arm was, and he made some really nice throws in this game, I thought his legs were outstanding the other night. And to me, that is the big equalizer. When everyone's going to go man, he can scramble for that first down. I think it's an element of his game that people don't appreciate enough.
Well, I agree with you, Joe. And when I was watching it the other day, or Friday morning after the game, I thought he was very, very much like Mahomes. Like they both are very talented at extending plays, creating offense, or just simply being able to buy time to throw the ball away. And so I think they both have that instinct. They both, if you probably put them in a 40-yard dash, they probably run about the same. They're probably both about 4.8, but they play faster than what that says, just because of their angles, their ability to just hesitate, start, stop, change direction. Like he's extremely talented. I thought it was a big part. That game was 23-17. You thought, this is going to be very reminiscent of Arizona. They're letting them hang around. They're one play away from, just the way Arizona scored one. And then, I thought they made the necessary plays at the end. But I thought throughout the game, his ability, whether it's just to elude somebody inside a phone booth, get outside the pocket, double back and do the things that Mahomes does. If I put them side by side and you took the names off the back of the jersey, they're pretty close to each other like that.
The Chiefs have had the Niners offensive number. You talked about their defense being stout against the run, being really good in the back end. Trip McDuffie, that nickel corner, maybe the best in football here. So how do the Niners with Brock Purdy, who has an ability to extend plays, and we've seen it on display over and over and over again, how does this offense figure out the recipe against Kansas City? Is it simply just trying to block them up front? How do you pit? Because they've had their number. 4 times Shanahan has gone up against Andy Reid and Spags. The Kansas City Chiefs have come out with a victory, Baldy.
Well, I think you've got to, obviously it's going to start with the run game and kind of build off of that. And we'll see, with the health of, I don't know what the health of Mason's going to be. I imagine he's going to be okay, but I don't really know at this point. But, I always feel like against Kansas City, you've got to figure out ways to get explosive plays. They're going to limit them, whether it's play action, whether it's formations. You got to figure out ways to flip the field position against that team. And he's always going to play field position. They got an excellent kicking game. They always have. They're going to try to make you go as many long fields as you can. You got to counter that with explosive plays, whether it's, play action, whether it's, getting a matchup against a particular player that you think IU can beat or whatever that is. I feel like that's the ingredient that you need to have. You need to have 3 or 4 of those in a game.
Baldy, I'm looking at their red zone opportunities, and they scored some touchdowns in this game, but I thought they did a better job. It wasn't perfect, but a better job of trying to isolate matchups and running some mesh concepts. They ran one that ended up being like a fade for Debo. I would have preferred it for like a bigger receiver, who could make a play. They ran some specific plays, it felt like, for George Kittle down in the goal line. Do you see some growth in that area in terms of maybe calling plays for playmakers as opposed to just dialing up plays?
I think it's a real game plan situation, Joe, because, basically most teams you say inside the 10 or certainly inside the 5. I mean, if you can run it in there the way McCaffrey did last year, you're going to have a good red zone offense. Now, I'm not saying Mason can't do that or Garendo or whatever else, but that's your first option. Can we run it in? Okay, and then you go, okay, most teams are either playing quarters where the holes are going to be very, very narrow, okay, or they're going to play man. And then if they are, what's our man beaters? Are we running picks? Are we running rubs? Do we have time to run crossers in the middle of the field to get guys open? And then the quarterback, because of the situation that you're in and because it's a compressed field, everything has to be heightened urgency. That's why the Chiefs are so good in the red zone, because they come up with these shovel passes. You see more creativity in that part of the field with Kansas City than anybody else. Now, a lot of these are hit or miss, but that's kind of the red zone, though. A lot of it is hit or miss. You can put all the stats you want up. Your first choice is to run it. Your second choice is, okay, am I anticipating, because that's how you're calling plays, with the anticipation of the predictable coverage.
Yep.
And then once you get that, okay, here's our plays. And so then it's a question of, for the quarterback, am I looking, is my first read to the 3 receiver side or is it to the 2 receiver side? And then how are we protecting up front against, a zero blitz or whatever else? There's just so many components, Joe, that you say, okay, it got better. I thought Seattle was down some corners. They didn't really have much of a pass rush. I mean, some of those things lead to success, for San Francisco.
Baldy, I know you joined the Cowboys the season after they lost the catch game at Candlestick Park. But I think earlier that season, the Niners beat the Cowboys and dropped 45 on them. I think it was big for them mentally. How massive is this for not only the fans here in San Francisco, but for those players in that locker room knowing that those Kansas City Chiefs, with a lot of those core members and those coaching staff, have kept them from glory twice in the game's ultimate game. How big is this mentally for the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan?
I mean, I think it's big. You don't want to, I'm sure if George Kittle was on, and he was asked him that question, how big, it's another game. The Super Bowl is the Super Bowl.
Right. It
really doesn't have anything to do with this game. Andy Reid's got 10 days, to prepare, or Kyle's got 10 days to prepare here. You should see a classic matchup. It should be a classic. I mean, both these teams should be healthier, although it doesn't seem to matter with the Chiefs. I mean, we'll elevate Juju, and he goes for 100. It's just unbelievable.
Right.
Just,
McCall Hardman who came back last year for the Jets. Yeah.
McCall Hardman, he left, went to the Jets, did nothing.
Right.
He's been the punt returner. All of a sudden, he comes in, catches a fly sweep, a screen. It's just nothing ever changes. They just go backwards in time with these players.